Even as a kid, when I went to go see Killer Klowns from Outer Space at the movie theater, I knew that it was going to be a big, silly parody of B-rate horror films. What I didn't expect was for it to be a genuinely well-made and razor-sharp satire of the genre, complete with a fun cast, full of memorable characters, and surprisingly effective special effects. And while it wasn't a big hit back in 1988, Killer Klowns managed to become a cult classic thanks to home video and a timeless story that holds up shockingly well. So well, in fact, that I didn't even bat an eye when I heard that it was going to be turned into a video game nearly 4 decades after it first hit theaters. Now that the game is finally out, is this return to Crescent Cove sweet like cotton candy or a big top nightmare? That's what we're about to find out when I review Killer Klowns from Outer Space. You don't need to have seen the Killer Klowns from Outer Space movie to play the new game, but it does help. For those who somehow missed out on the original cult classic, it's basically a parody of cheesy horror movies from the 1950s and 60s. They essentially took the plot of The Blob and then replaced the red goo with a bunch of killer circus clowns. This was, after all, the 1980s, a time when clowns had gone from being family-friendly entertainment to literally the scariest thing ever. Thanks, of course, in large part to Stephen King's It and the murder spree of John Wayne Gacy. Killer Klowns managed to marry our fears of space aliens and clowns, creating a genuinely clever horror film that was able to be funny and scary at the exact same time. Now, the game builds on all the ideas found in the movie, turning the clowns versus human concept into a fun and engaging multiplayer competition where both sides are trying to complete different goals. The clowns, for example, are trying to hunt down the townspeople and turn them into cotton candy in order to usher in the deadly clown apocalypse and bring an end to civilization as we know it. The humans, on the other hand, are just trying to fight back and escape. It's one of those tension-filled cat-and-mouse scenarios, only with the cat being these massive and grotesque clowns and the mice being brain-dead teenagers in 80s fashion. Well, the premise is certainly simple enough. How you go about completing the mission is more nuanced than I make it sound. For instance, the humans are a lot weaker and easier to kill than the clowns. They can only hold 4 different items or weapons at once, which will often mean making difficult choices that could be the difference between life or death. In order to survive the evil clown menace, they're going to need to band together and work as a team to find the items that they need to open up escape routes, all as stealthily as humanly possible. Of course, it's not going to be that easy. There really are a lot of things in this game that are designed to split the humans apart, and I don't mean that in a clown fatality sort of way. Every single one of the exits will require finding a series of items, including a key card, spark plugs, gas cans, and more. You're going to need to use these items to, for example, get the boat working again, allowing the humans to escape. The problem is that only a few people are going to be able to get out by boat. The same is true for the bridge going out of town. If too many people try to cross, it'll collapse. This has a way of not only splitting up the teams, but also to give everybody an incentive to be a little selfish. After all, when a killer clown is chasing you, nobody says you have to be the fastest. You just need to make sure not be the slowest. Speaking of the clowns, their goal is a lot easier and, let's be honest, more fun. This is played more as a third-person action game, where each clown gets to use one of the humorous circus guns from the movie. We start out with a ray gun that turns the humans into cotton candy, but it won't take long before we upgrade to a shotgun that shoots out popcorn. Yeah, that's the kind of game we're playing here. The goal for the 3 clowns on the stage is to hunt down the 7 humans, turn them into cotton candy, and then hang them up in these big contraptions called lackey generators. There are 4 of these generators scattered around the stage, with each having 4 spots to hang the human cotton candy. As soon as you fill up all 4 of the generators, it'll trigger the clown apocalypse and any human that hasn't escaped will die. It's worth noting that this is also what happens when time runs out, but the clowns can trigger the devastation a lot sooner by filling up the generators. Now, not only do the clowns have guns and can respawn, but they also have a series of special moves and abilities that they can pull off as the round goes on. For example, one of the helpful abilities is to warp to a different part of the stage in order to find more humans. Another move you can select will allow you to hunt with a balloon dog or put a human in a trance, making them a lot easier to turn into cotton candy. There really are a bunch of these different special abilities that you can unlock and select when you're customizing the clown, which can make the aliens feel a bit overpowered at times. However, there are certainly downsides to playing as the clown. For example, they're slower and they lumber around. You'll also find that it actually takes a little while to subdue a human, often giving them enough time to run away or fight back. And don't think that just because you're a killer clown, that makes you invincible. While the clowns can't scavenge for items, the humans can, and that can include anything from knives to guns to baseball bats. If given an opportunity, those pesky humans can make the space invaders actually regret touching down in America. Now, the online multiplayer rounds take place in 5 different locations, each based on different scenes in the film. Neither too big nor too small, the stages find a nice balance where there's plenty of room to run around and find items, but it's never so big that it's overwhelming. The stage designs are probably my favorite part of this game, taking you to the amusement park, a classic makeout point next to the old lighthouse, the absolutely devastated suburbs, downtown Crescent Cove, and even the old summer camp. Although there aren't a whole lot of levels, I like how each of them has a different look and atmosphere, and it's fun to see what happened to the once peaceful city once the Killer Klowns showed up. There's a lot of great and detailed destruction and carnage, and it works as both nostalgia for the longtime fans, as well as just being an interesting setting for anybody who hasn't seen the film. The big problem with the level designs is they're all built in such a way where you'll see the same few escape routes with the exact same requirements in every single stage. Sure, that makes it easy to know what you're supposed to be doing, but it ultimately holds the game back. The idea of jumping in a boat and escaping the clown certainly makes sense in a few of the stages, but why not escape the campgrounds using a truck or an ATV or just something different? It really feels like a missed opportunity to not have each stage host their own unique exits. Not only would that have shaken up the action and kept everybody on their toes, but it also would have given the different stages a little bit more personality. You know what, though? This just hints at the bigger problem, which is the game's inherent repetition. Even though being able to play as both the clowns and the humans certainly shakes things up, there's no question that performing the same tasks every single time you play gets old after a while. Like any asymmetrical multiplayer game, I had a great time early on when I was learning the levels and the gameplay was still fresh. However, as I gained experience and unlocked the different characters, weapons, and abilities, I found myself getting bored of that loop. Long before I even hit level 30, I just couldn't shake the feeling that I had already seen and done everything the game had to offer. There just wasn't enough variety to keep me invested, and collecting the clothes and accessories wasn't enough of a hook to make me want to play every day. And that's a shame, because this game actually has a lot going for it. The visual presentation is strong, and the levels are both well constructed and beautifully detailed. The game handles well, no matter if you're a clown or a human. There are also plenty of movie-related gigs that are a lot of fun, like the invisible car and the dog made out of balloons. And did I mention the gory fatalities? Those are also a lot of fun. The problem is that all of this gets old because of the lack of variety. This is a game in serious need of different modes, or at least games that mix things up a bit. Add some story elements and a reason to keep me coming back, and I'm gonna be there. But unfortunately, when it comes right down to it, Killer Klowns from Outer Space is a good game that could have been great. If you're a fan of Killer Klowns and asymmetrical multiplayer horror, then you're gonna have a whole lot of fun with this online game of cat and mouse. The locations, the characters, the clowns all look like they were pulled straight out of the movie. And you're gonna have a lot of fun recognizing the different weapons and abilities. But once the nostalgia wears off and you've played through the 5 stages multiple times, the repetition will start to set in. It won't take long before it feels like you've seen and done everything, and there just aren't any hooks to keep you coming back. This is what I would call a good shell of a game, but without new content and more varied options, I just can't imagine many sticking with this for very long. Killer Klowns uses an amazing license surprisingly well, but it still manages to come up short. Hey, thanks for watching my review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What horror movie should get the video game treatment? It doesn't have to be a cult classic or even a long-running series, which makes me really excited to see what you pick in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with another review and a review crew episode. Yes, those are different things. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,